Welcome to the Go Ahead Sis YouTube channel. My name is Mary.
And my name's Nicole.
And we are super excited about sharing our most intimate, real, and raw conversations between millennials, Generation X, and Generation Z.
It's based off of our mentor and mentee relationship, straight right here from my living room. We're passing the baton, connecting the dots between the three generations, and bridging the gaps.
Welcome back to episode, what is this now? I believe this is 9.
Is. It's episode 9. Welcome back.
Thank you guys for tuning in again. Thank you for the support. And just thank you for just sharing with a friend and giving us your comments and feedback. We really appreciate it. So this episode, we have another special guest. A sweet lady. Roseanne. We have what Roseanne, tell us about yourself.
So I'm a woman who loves to travel, explore cultures, buy food and music, and just experience life. I've known you ladies for forever and a day, but that doesn't mean that we're old. It just means that we met a long time ago. I just quit my job and I'm working full-time doing coaching. I have 2 baby boys and I've been married for 8 years, and I just love life. That's me in a nutshell.
Yes. And yes, we have known each other forever and a day. And with that, as you know, guys, I'm the millennial here, and Roseanne has dropped a few gems in my life that I just had to just think about myself. So one thing about Roseanne, she's good at getting to the root and making you really ask yourself like deep, serious questions. Isn't that true, Roseanne?
It's true. Usually claim being a millennial, even though I am. So I just set that record. I am.
That is true. Well, yeah, fine, whatever. So
don't qualify me.
So with that said, right, like I just said, Roseanne was big on like dropping gems in my life, as well as just even the conversation that all 3 of us have sometimes. And with that, more of our conversation has been about productivity, which she's really good at. Hit her up if you need some productivity help. But most of our conversations have really been about productivity and getting going and just understanding who you are and what you're created to be and created to do. So today's conversation will be just about that. Comparison, and how in today's society, a lot of that happens, like a lot. And it's to the point that it holds us back because we feel like we're not enough compared to certain people, whether it's we're comparing ourselves to looks, comparing ourselves to status, whether job related, comparing how much money one person has to another person. And it doesn't allow us to be just our full self and be our full selves and show up with the potential that we know we can give to this world. So my first question, Roseanne, have you ever at some point got caught up with comparing yourself or was compared by others? And how did you nip that in the bud?
So easy answer, yes, absolutely. It happens. It happens all the time. It has happened in the past, and it's actually an ongoing process of me reminding myself that I have what I need. So before I even get into that, I'll share that my weight loss journey has been something that I struggled with for many, many years. Like my weight has fluctuated since I was a teenager. And I remember even after I had my 2 babies, just being inspired by some woman who just had this snapback after pregnancy. And I'm like, yes, I'm claiming all of that. And that inspiration quickly turned to comparison when my journey seemed much longer. So that's definitely one area where I've compared myself, like, why is it taking me so long to get back to pre-pregnancy weight? And, even just in different social circles, maybe you'll see someone who does something similar to you, whether it's that you launch a business or you write a book or you do something, and their book may become a bestseller and yours, probably no one knows about it. Or in marriages, we see what people want us to see on social media, right? So you see the warm and fuzzy and the romantic fairy tales, and then you automatically start to believe that this is what everyone's relationship should look like. So then you start to compare your relationship, like, my boyfriend didn't do that, my husband didn't do that, nobody ever did that for me. So anything from like magazines to social media. One quick thing I'll say is that when I lived in China for 2 years, I had some girls who would just tell me that they're not beautiful and they're too fat. I'm talking about some 60 pounds girls, right? Like, not even anything that we would consider overweight here in America. And when I would say to them, but why do you think that you're fat? Why do you think that you're not beautiful? They would show me magazines, American magazines, and say, because I don't look like her.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy, because that's still because Ro, like, we've had these conversations like over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And even though like it's still along the line of comparison, we call it a little bit something different. We actually call it something, because we call it the blueprint. We call
Mm-hmm.
it we because we talk about this all the time about
All the
like
time.
how, like, what does the blueprint look like? But we call it the blueprint because it what's the word am I looking for? It applies to so many different areas of our life, right? From body, from self-esteem to career to whatever it may be. So going back to comparison, since Mary so beautifully kicked this whole thing, this episode, what you say, we're on episode 9. She so beautifully kicked episode 9 off with comparison. So the example that you gave is with the young girls and the 60 pounds. What would you say is the root of comparison? Because it ranges from all ages. It's not just a young girl thing. It's a gender thing. It ranges from gender to all ages. What would you say is the root of comparison?
Honestly, I would say it's unrealistic expectations, because I've seen some videos of girls on billboards, and Nicole, those girls don't look like themselves. Like, when we put on makeup or when we like use Photoshop or all these different tools and techniques, we're trying to look like us in, the perfected stage. So I think it's really unrealistic expectations, because there was this one video that I saw where the girl walked in looking like a regular chick, and by the time she was done, her neck was elongated using technology. Her eyelashes were, just embellished, and all these things that were done from makeup to Photoshop to technology. That girl probably walked out thinking, dag, I wish I looked like that. Like, she doesn't even look like herself after, all the things we do. So I think it's just unrealistic expectations. I don't know if any of you ever saw these images of celebrities without makeup. And then when you see from the blemishes to the acne to the discoloration, you're like, they don't even look like what we think they look like. So why are we trying to attain something that not even that person that we're comparing ourselves to can attain?
So what do you think, especially like, okay, so with you, like what Mary said, many people know you as like the productivity coach. What do you feel like these unclear expectations come from? Because they're out there, like even you and I have talked about, and even Mary, because we all three of us spend a lot of time together. Where do you feel like these unclear expectations come from, and why do we put these unrealistic expectations on ourselves? Maybe all of us can answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that one of the things is that we don't know the full story, right? So I can say, oh, hey, everybody, I quit my job. Hey, right? What you didn't know is that I bust my tail at a corporate job for 10 years before I quit my job. So if I just go on social media and say, quit my job, Mary could go and be like, wow, Ro quit her job. That's a blueprint. Let me go quit my job. Well, guess what? I'm not paying your rent. I'm not paying your mortgage. So you better stay at your job and have a strategy. So I think a lot of the times is that when people tell their stories, some chapters are missing. They're not telling you the time when they were on their cousin's couch sleeping because they were homeless. They're not telling you the time when they stayed up until 2:00 every morning working their after their job because they were trying to make something happen. So I think in addition to the unrealistic expectations, is that you're comparing yourself to someone's story that you don't even know the full story. And a lot of times, to be honest, we want the results, but we're not willing to put in the work.
Okay, so I hear that most people don't put in the full work, and most people are not given the full transparency. So
Yeah.
they're not being truthful about the full story.
Yeah,
Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
definitely.
Huh.
I agree with that too, because and it goes back to Instagram, like how Instagram or just social media in its entirety, if you look at a picture, you know how they say a picture can tell 1,000 words, but you never know what happened behind that picture or video, or you're just assuming based on what you see, like, oh, that person is happy, or if they post like a certain meme, it's like, oh, they're talking about somebody. And just like Roseanne said, we don't know everything. So because we don't know everything, we develop our own assumption and compare our assumption to what we think is going on, which may not even be for certain, may not even be the case scenario, but because of our assumption, now we're set on comparing ourselves. What you said about the whole quitting your job, that was a beautiful example, because I see that a lot where it's just like, oh, so this person does that. It's like, okay, well, let me do it because they did it and I look up to them, or I see what they post and it looks like they're in this position that I want to be in. So let me do that, not knowing the full story that goes behind it. And a lot of, especially my generation, I see a lot of that where it's, we get caught up, and I've done it before, especially when it comes to looks, where most of the Instagram pages I would follow are beauty pages. And I would just, just look at the models and just be like, wow, their cheekbones or their skin is so clear, or, their hair is so nice. And I would want that, but I wouldn't know the work that, that they put into that, whether it's they took vitamins or they ate healthy for 2 years to get their hair like this, or they just took care of their skin, or they got cosmetic surgery, and we're just comparing ourselves to the assumption of what we think.
And Mary, I love what you shared, because Nicole and I will talk about cliff jumping all the time. Like some people will encourage us, just quit your job and go ahead and cliff jump and take the leap of faith. But we have stable bills, so we need stable income. We need to have a strategy before we just, cliff jump. But the other thing people don't think about when they give advice is, if you're not starting from the same place, you can't just tell someone to do what you did, right? So if I'm making $200,000 a year, I can save a lot more than someone who's making $50,000 a year. So for me to go and tell somebody to go cliff jump, who doesn't have an emergency fund, doesn't have any cushion, doesn't have any family to support them, doesn't have a friend that can lend them some money, I'm actually doing a disservice to someone by not knowing their story, but expecting them to follow my blueprint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the things is in that whole comparison thing too, I know one of the beautiful things is so I'm gonna just shift it real quick, because I the beautiful thing about when we talk about the blueprint, because Roseanne, you just triggered a thought in what you just said with the example that you just used. Roseanne and I, we worked a 9 to 5. We're working our business, our personal businesses simultaneously on the side. Can I share that, Roseanne? Can I share our stories?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course.
And I know that most people, like she said, would probably just work just their business only and wouldn't work a 9 to 5. But the beautiful thing about the millennials and the Gen Zs and all of them, they have shown that you can work a 9 to 5, especially in this pandemic. They work in a 9 to 5, they work in their businesses, they're doing it all at the same time. You know what I mean? And they're doing that and more. And how the blueprint came up for both Roseanne and I is that people have to do what works for them. No two blueprints are the same. And that's one of the things that we have always wanted to hit home. You have to sit down and really work out what works for you, how much money you need to, you know what I'm saying, to maintain the lifestyle that you need, you know what I'm saying? Because you may need $200K or you may need $10,000, you know what I'm saying, to maintain your lifestyle. You have to figure out what that life looks like to you to maintain your blueprint. You know, you may can work a retail job. You may can work a 9 to 5. You know what I mean? You have to figure out exactly what that looks like for you. It's not going to look like the person that works, that's, you know what I mean, that's next to you. You have to figure that out. And I wish somebody would have told me that, because I did, you know, personally, let me just keep it a buck. I did feel like I wasted some years trying to make my blueprint look like somebody else's. And it did not. I wish somebody would have just pulled me to the side and was like, girl, you need to do what works for you. You know what I mean? Because everybody's blueprints looks different. That's all I'm trying to say.
And I love that you said that, because when you say it like that, it places no judgment on it. It's not better, it's not worse, it's simply just different. So if you decide to do 2 jobs and a side gig, and Mary decides to do just her business, and I decide to do 1 job and a side gig, it's not better or worse. It's not good or bad. It's not the right way or the wrong way. It's just different, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Which
because
is
then that's when you start comparing like, well, I did my blueprint exactly like this. Why isn't it working? How come I'm not getting the same results as Sally? Because, you know, I took this and I plugged it into this, and 2 + 2 = 4, and it's not working. And then you start comparing your results, and, you know, and that can cause depression, and, you know what I mean? And it can cause, you know, and then you start feeling away because you're not getting the same results because you did the same formula when that's not your formula. You know what I mean? Your formula may be 3 + 1 = 4, or 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 4. You know what I mean? And you have to do what works for you. Sorry, Mary, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I like what you guys were saying, and what just came to me is no 2 fingerprints are the same, which means no 2 person are the same. And you know, we're taught and even groomed from a certain age. It has to be, especially like, let's say education system, it has to be a certain way. And if you don't complete it this way, then you're less, or if you do it too early, then you're not as talented, or you're not at the right time, at the right place, on the right track. When if you really think about it, most multimillionaires and billionaires, they didn't do the standard track. They did what works for them, as you two are saying. So just like you said, and I repeat it, no 2 blueprints are the same, no 2 fingerprints are the same. Like, you're created differently from everybody else. So you don't have to be the same as your friend or the same as your brother or sister, you know, especially siblings. You know, we parents can compare us to one another. It's like, why can't you be like this person, or why can't you be like that person? Which, you know, opens the door to doubt and insecurity. And then even comparison now, you know, the parent brought on comparison. So now that door is opened even more, like even wider, to like other areas of your life where, am I good enough? Am I doing this? Because that person's not, you know. So your track and your blueprint doesn't have to be the same, regardless of whatever area that is, as long as it works for you, like what you ladies said.
I'll give you a real life example. When I started out as a makeup artist back in 2003, you know, some of my homegirls at the time, some of my homegirls was going into video and they was making it, right? And some of them were moving out to California. And I thought that was my blueprint, right? So I did a couple of videos and I was like, right? And then I was like, let me try special effects, right? But then I knew that I needed some additional training. So I enrolled in school because I was like, you know, I needed to know them chemicals. That led to me moving to New York to learn. So I ended up going to school. Make a long story short, I ended up going into product development, which led me into a completely different world that makeup artists had really never branched out into, which was product development. That was my lane. my blueprint, because there was, I think it was probably like only a other couple, like maybe a couple of makeup artists. But now I get makeup artists that are like, how did you get there? Because it's not any that's really in that lane. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, there's a few that's in like education, but like in product development, of course, I'm pretty sure that it's expanded now in 2021. But back then, it wasn't a lot of makeup artists back then. You understand what I'm saying? But you have to find the blueprint that works for you. I was trying to go down a path that looked like, because everybody else was doing it, which was video. You understand what I'm saying? You have to take the time out and figure out the best road that's for you.
Right.
And even you, Rosie, if you think about it, even your move to China, you understand how many women are walking around here that's fluent in Mandarin.
Thank you. And you know, Nicole, even as you were saying that, I'll just be honest. So you tried to journey someone else's journey, right? But the difference between you and I is that you at least tried all the things to make it work. For me, I'm just sitting here like looking at Serena Williams like, well, how's she so toned? But I'm not willing to put in the work. So it's one thing to at least try something, you know, do all the things you need to do. But for me, like sometimes I'll see someone and I'll get inspired and I even start to compare myself, but I'm not willing to put in the hours of exercise and the tennis that Serena, I'm not even willing to put in all that work. So how dare me compare myself to her, wanting what she has when I'm not even planning to do the work?
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
So yeah, that's another part of it too. It's like you're over here looking at what someone else has, but you're not willing to put in the hours of internship, the hours of education, the hours of praying and work and all that stuff. But you're comparing yourself to someone else who has put in the work.
Right. So with that now, because now how you just used the example what you are inspired by Serena, but then some people don't want to put in the work. Excuse me, some people don't want to put in the work, or whether they feel stuck and don't know where to put in the work. What advice would you give for if you want to reach that certain level, but you don't know how to start or don't know where to start? What advice would you give now with that example that you just gave?
Well, I would start with what Nicole shared in terms of first, you have to carve out your own journey, right? So if you're looking at Serena Williams and you're saying she has ABC, what is it that you can attain, right? So first, I would even start with cultivating gratitude for what you have. Starting there, like, what is it that I do have? What is it that I can be grateful for? And then start to be more strategic about what it is that you want, and then how can you get there? Because if you're not willing to put in the work, then you can't expect the transformation. If you're not willing to be inconvenienced, whether that means putting in sweat or work or even money, like sometimes you need to put in your own resources, your time, your finances to get to where you want to be. So I would start by one, being thankful for what you have and where you are, and then two, carving out a plan and a strategy to get to where you want to be.
I like that. So, follow-up question.
Yeah.
How do you think culture today helps and hinders comparison?
I think it does both. So we can talk about hindering. Like when you compare, you obviously negate what you have, right? Because you're looking at everything that someone else has, but you're not really being grateful for what you have. So comparing is gonna belittle what you have. So it's definitely hindering in that way. When you look at images on billboards or like the lead girl in the movie or the magazine, you're starting to capture these unrealistic standards of beauty. But on the helping side, I would say that there's some women and some industries and companies who are being so intentional about changing the messaging. So it's affirming us, right? So for example, my nieces who are between like 16 and 21, they are so confident with their body. And it's not because they have what society says is a perfect body, but they're like, this is my body, this is what you're gonna get. And they're just, confident. They're not trying to fit into this mold. So I think that there's some messaging that's helping, whether it's like a children's book that says it's okay to be different, or whether it's like some of the women who, you know, have made it, like Viola Davis or Issa Rae, who are beautiful, but are chanting the message that it's okay to be you. It's okay to be authentic. It's okay to be different. So I feel like the media can hinder, but some people can use that same platform to help us.
Okay. So basically you're saying it's just how we use social media. How we use social media can affect if we open the door to comparison.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I mean, if you're going on someone's page and you really check in with yourself and be honest, like, you know, every time I go on Nicole's page, I'm like, oh, look at her dimple. She's so pretty. Look at her curls. Look at her hair color. She's so perfect. If I go and I'm like, oh, she's a dope sister, then that's fine. But if I start to feel like, oh man, I wish I was like her. I wish I were her. Then you have to stop and be like, hold up. Me being on this person's page is not healthy. It's not beneficial for me. Maybe I need to either take a break off social media or sit down and journal and find out what is it that I think that I'm missing or lacking, why these feelings are coming up. Or, you know, sometimes maybe you just need to unfollow someone. So it really depends on how you use social. I mean, like you and Nicole are using social so powerfully where you can say, go ahead, girl, you got this. Empower people, affirm people. So when someone comes to your page, it's inspiring. But there's some people who use it for, you know, their own benefit or use it for negative or even toxic or hostile situations. So anything can be neutral, but it depends on how it's used. That makes it positive or negative.
What are some lessons or takeaways that you can share with us, Roseanne?
So one thing that really happened during the pandemic is that we had to stop hustling, we had to stop the bustling, and we really got a chance to slow down and think and reflect. I would say that it's important to cultivate that time intentionally, to just pause and think. Sometimes you just need to check in with yourself and say, how am I feeling today? Is everything okay with me? And start to pick up those things that are off so that you can work on that, right? You know, sometimes we're moving so fast that we're not even realizing things that are triggering us or things that created trauma. And we're not really able to do that internal work. So I would say really just sit down, slow down and reflect. But more importantly, I would just affirm ourselves like, I am enough. I have enough. There is enough. You know, a lot of times we're operating from a lack mentality. It's like, oh, there's only one spot. Mary has it. There's only one role. This person has it. But if you really start to trust the process and believe that everything is unfolding the way it should, then you'll start to realize there's enough. Nicole is not the only makeup artist. There's room for me. Mary's not the only lawyer or stylist or girl with this and that and that. There's room for me. And what makes it beautiful is that we can all share that space, and our authenticity and our uniqueness is what's going to make it different. Instead of me trying to be like Mary or me trying to be like Nicole, there's room for Roseanne. And there's only one Roseanne who can do it like the way I can do it. No one can do it the way Mary can do it. No one can do it the way Nicole can do it. So when we start to rally around that beauty, we'll stop trying to be like someone else. So I would say we could start there.
So basically you said one of the lessons is 1, watch how you use social media. 2, figure out what you want to do. And then 3, from that, you can write out your own blueprint. And if you want to get inspiration, it's fine to do that. But don't let inspiration get caught up with comparison.
Boom. Yep, that's it.
Got you.
So, Ro, let me ask you this: can you name one time when you have went through a moment when you had went through a period of comparison, and if so, how did you come out of it?
Honestly speaking, maybe even now, like sometimes. So before I answer that, let me tell you something really quickly about this man that I love, who is Dr. Miles Monroe. He's one of the first people that I heard talking about comparison, and not only how it belittles what God has done for us, but also how we're not to compare ourselves with other people. We're supposed to compare ourselves with our past, right? So the easiest example, I got 50 on my exam today. Tomorrow I get 51. I'm winning, right? Because I'm getting better every day. So even going back to my story about weight, I'll say there are times when like I go on social media and I'm on someone's page that I don't even know. It just randomly came up in my feed. And I'm like, oh, wow, how did they do that? Even when I go through my cycle where, sometimes I'm more bloated, I start to compare like, but this person just had a baby and they're not looking like that. And, my baby is 5 years. So what is my excuse? And honestly, I would say that what really helps me to get out of that is my relationships. Like even you, Nicole, like I've had times where I talk about my weight and you're like, Ro, just give yourself more grace, when you're ready to do what you're going to do it. So I think just having relationships that are healthy, where I have my friends checking in on me and then I'm checking in on my friends, I think that can really help to pull you out of a rut when you're starting to feel a certain way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then, just trying to uplift yourself and not feel inferior because of the way that you look or what you have or what you don't have.
I love that. I love that. So let me ask both of you guys this. Okay, so living in this time of social media, and Ro, I know that you like not a big social media person. So Mary, from a millennial standpoint, how do you not allow social media to affect your daily life from a millennial standpoint? Because y'all be on social media like every day, even though I know you've been doing a good job about winging yourself off of social media.
So at the moment, well, yeah, I have done a good job weeding myself, and the status of my phone helps me with that. But for me, I take breaks. And when I say breaks, even, okay, practically speaking, on iPhone, right, we have a thing called screen time. And I set my screen time where my Instagram and Facebook, even though I'm really not on Facebook, I set my screen time for 1 hour. So after 1 hour, the app will shut down. It don't matter if I use the hour up at 3 p.m. or if I was on it from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. After that hour, it lets me know that, okay, you reached your max. Now, I do have the option to ignore it, or I can just be like, all right, well, it's a wrap. Whatever I miss, I miss. So that is one thing I practically do. And then another thing, for me, I don't know if anybody feels like this, but I'm just like, social media, it can be a little draining, not a little, but it can be draining sometimes. And especially like with drama and blog page. And I feel like, everybody's doing the same thing. So it's just like, I'm kind of thinking, okay, what can I like contribute to social media where I can be an answer to my own problem? So one, I'll say it again, it's using the screen time app on the phone to help me limit. And two, just taking a break whenever I just feel like, okay, I've had enough, or if I feel like every time I scroll, there's something might be like affecting me, or I'm just like, okay, I feel like I just feel different now. Let me just get off. So that is one or two ways that I, don't limit my time on social media.
So
I love that.
hear, is it, can we say that that's kind of like unlock the power of contentment? Like you get your fix and then you down.
That's good.
Yes, this phone, yes, it has, yes. Contentment. Yeah. Because I even asked myself, if I just being honest. So I asked myself this question. I'm like, okay, if I get a new phone, what is that going to do for me? And I'm talking about my phone, and some of the viewers don't know, but I'll share it because it's a funny story. So my phone, I have a habit of dropping it. So right now it's just in a state. So it's kind of hard.
Half the screen is black.
Half of the screen is black. It's a mess. When I text people, I have to text like 6 times because it's a typo, but whatever, it's at this point. But yes, that has brought up the level of contentment where I'm just like, listen, some people don't even have a phone. Like, as long as I can make an emergency call and ask Siri to do the simple things, I'm fine. But if I don't grab a hold or, take control of my urge to go on social media or my urge to do something else, what am I going to do when I get a brand new phone? I'm going to just go rampant with it. So let me practice being content with what I have now and using my time wisely. So when I do get the new phone, I won't be back in the same habit that I just tried to get out of.
I love that. And Mary, I even love when you said, like, it's almost like you're checking in with yourself, like, oh, I'm not feeling good anymore. This is making me feel anxious, or this is getting me into comparison. Time to get off. So I love that you're using your own internal gauge to say, all right, that's enough. Moving on. I'm out.
Right.
That's wisdom.
I have another question, Ro. So since you have been on this journey with defining your own blueprint, how have you had boundaries? What have your boundaries look like? Like what does your boundaries look like? Or do you have any?
Um, I would say the first one is like personally trying to unlearn certain things. So there's certain thoughts or beliefs that I've just adopted or just had downloaded, whether it's the fact that I'm Jamaican or I'm a woman or I'm a Christian or, societal norms. So for me, just like how Mary talked about kind of checking in, like if I need to do something and I'm like, wait, hold up, why am I doing this? Or why do I feel I have to do this? I kind of do those check-ins where I have to figure out if I'm doing something because that's someone else's blueprint or that's what society says that I'm supposed to do. So really asking myself, why am I doing something or why am I not doing it, right? Um, but in terms of like actual boundaries, I have a smart mouth, but when people ask me questions and it starts to make me second guess myself, I'll really, start to look at that. But I think some of the boundaries are even how much I share. So with you, Nicole and Mary, like we've had like these amazing, transparent, authentic conversations where I don't have to hold back. So if I'm gonna start a company tomorrow, I feel comfortable talking to you, to both of you, but you have to know who you can talk to. You have to know where your information is safe. You have to know where there's safe spaces. So one of my boundaries is not just blabbing my mouth to every person who will listen, but really using discernment to see who can I share this dream with? Who can I share this goal with?
Ah, that was a hard lesson for me. I'm learning, but go ahead. Sorry.
No. Yeah, so definitely one, just kind of unlearning things and thinking about why I do what I do, and then creating boundaries about my time. Oh, my time. That's a big one. Um, I create a lot of boundaries around my time because since I am not working a full-time job that tells me when I'm supposed to work, I have to make sure that I'm not wasting time. So part of that may be putting stuff on the calendar. Like, okay, for 2 hours on Tuesday, you're going to do some research, or you're going to watch a video that trains you, or you're going to work on your website, or you're going to work on, getting partnerships. So I think establishing boundaries around my time is something that has really benefited me in like every area of my life. Because if I don't use my time wisely, I'm just going to look up and I'm doing everything for everyone because I haven't made any intentional plans around it. So time management is something that I'm like really big on. That's one major boundary that really helps me.
And that's how you can productivity coach too, and teaching others how to manage their time as well.
Absolutely. Because I mean, y'all know my journey. I went from who wants to go to Egypt next week to, oh, so I'm getting married and we having a baby and we gonna have another baby. Like, who all these people taking up all my time? Right. So I had to quickly figure out how to still be able to do what I love, still be able to make the impact, because way before I became a wife, there were things that I wanted to do. So while I love being a mom and a wife, I didn't just want to get lost in my titles or my roles, or, never have time for my friends, not write the book, not do all the things that I wanted to do. So how can I maximize the 24 hours that I was given? That was really how productivity coaching started. Like, we have this limited amount of time. How can I maximize it?
Some good nuggets. Some good nuggets.
Nicole, were there any kind of boundaries that you either had to learn the hard way or that you're currently trying to put in place now?
The boundaries, like you said, be more careful about who I share like my dreams with, because you know me, Ro, if you're in my personal space, I'm an open book. You know what I mean? I share everything that's like on my heart. You know what I mean? Especially if you're like in my open, in my most intimate space, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my biggest lessons that I've had to learn, is that not to share everything with everyone. Number two is because I'm a big giver. You know what I mean? I've had to learn how to say no.
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? And not give so much of me even when I'm empty. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, I've had to learn how to set a boundary with that. Um, because even when you're tired and people will see that you're tired, they'll still take from you. And, I've had to learn how to set boundaries, with that. Because I'm a giver. I would say those have been my biggest lessons that I've really, really, had to really zone in on, and Ro, because I've had many conversations where both you and, Danielle have really had to help me walk through, you know what I mean? And,
Mm-hmm.
You guys have really been beneficial, to me in that area, because that's a big love language of mine. And that I've had to really, learn the biggest lessons in. So yeah, I would say those two.
Those are really good, Nicole. And like even when you talked about saying no, that's something that I won't even say I'm fully comprehending the lesson. It's still something that I'm learning. But even years ago, I remember like if you said to me at 5:55, hey Ro, I need you to come babysit my kids at 6 o'clock because I forgot that I need to do something. I would cancel my plans to go help you out of your emergency. And then I started to realize that someone else's poor planning can't constitute an emergency on my part. So I had to learn to say no, but then it went from me learning to say no, but then realizing that no is a whole sentence. No, period. Because I would say, I would go from being a yes person and a people pleaser to then now saying, oh, no, because I told Nicole and Mary that we're gonna go down to the beach, so I can't
Yeah.
why am I explaining myself? You
Yes.
decided to put your stuff ahead of everybody else's. You don't care about what I was doing. So why am I sitting here explaining myself why I'm not free in 5 minutes to do what you need me to do?
Yeah. Explaining everything. Oh, and then one more too is asking for what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really
Still
good
working
one.
on that.
Yeah.
Still working on that. So yeah, I'm
And
still
asking
working on that.
big, right? Not no
Yeah.
little small request, but like go hard or go home kind of ask, that's really good.
Is there
Yeah.
levels to asking?
Ooh, Rosie. I'm gonna
That's
let
a
you
good
handle that
question.
one.
I would
Is
say,
there levels to asking? Go
At
ahead,
least
Rose. Sorry.
no, I was gonna say, at least for me, I think I don't know, out of respect, I think there's levels for asking. Like if I just met Roseanne and I'm just like, can you loan me $2,000?
right.
Like, Mary,
Yeah.
Oh,
what?
you mean like to like the gift?
No,
I'm
not
more
get
like a ask.
like
But
like I can't go to a CEO. Well, not say I can't, but just practically speaking, I can't go to, let's say, a higher up and say, can I get this? But there wasn't levels to this. So if that makes sense, like, is there levels to asking questions at a certain level?
no, but
That's
timing is everything. Timing is everything. Like, I would say that timing is everything. You know what I'm saying? Like it has been time. So I'm gonna take it to a spiritual standpoint where God has placed on my heart to go and ask for something, but I probably didn't. You know what I'm saying? That's a whole another conversation. But yeah, timing is everything. I is there levels to asking? I can't answer that question. Let me come back to you on that. Some people would say yes. Some people would say no. It just all just depends on your mindset, I guess. Ro, what you think?
I think it's a great question. And like, as I'm sitting here unpacking it, I feel like there are different ways that we can attack it because Mary, to your point about, like if I just met you, is it okay for me to ask you to borrow your car or something like that? Or what I would say is, I would agree with Nicole that maybe it's not a straight yes or no, but there are a couple factors to consider. For example, sweat equity. So Mary, if you come to me and you say, hey, Ro, can you help me do XYZ? If you don't know the first step to doing it and you're saying what I need from you is clarity and strategy and accountability, I feel like that's an appropriate ask. But if you're saying, oh, can you help me do ABC, and you know how to do ABC and you haven't even put in the sweat equity, then in my head, I'm like, but you know how to do it and you're not doing it. So why am I gonna donate my time and my talent when you're not even putting in the work for your own thing? Right. So I feel like there are different levels, if you would. And it's also about motive. Like one thing I love about Nicole is that she has an amazing gift of discernment. Right. So it depends on your motive. If your motive is, if it's for good and if it's for positive impact, then I think it's great to ask, because another thing Nicole has really been challenging me is with a big ask. She'll say, well, Rose, you would do XYZ for everyone. So why is it that you're afraid to ask someone? So I think I really don't want to say yes or no. I think it depends. And even to Nicole's point about obedience, if God says, go ask the CEO for 200,000, you better ask. I don't care about no levels. You better go ask. Right. So there's obedience, there's motive, there's you putting in your own sweat equity. It's kind of like mentorship. Like, I don't want to just go to someone and say, can you mentor me, when I didn't even Google how to do something? What time have I put in it before I'm going to ask somebody to give me their time?
Yeah.
Got you.
I don't know if there's levels to it, because actually, me, Roseanne, and another friend, we just challenged each other, and we all, when I say we cliff jump, we all challenged each other and we all did it. Right, Rose?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And we all got instant responses.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, let me get back to you. Maybe we'll have that in the next episode. How about that? Maybe we'll bring Roseanne back and there'll be a part 2. How about that?
That's fair, because even like I'm even thinking of it from a work of art, because I remember talking to Nicole and another friend and saying, hey, I'm thinking about talking to this corporation. How much do you think I can charge? And the other friend said very casually, whatever you want. And that shifted my mindset, because I'm like, Mary, maybe I was thinking, okay, level 1, ask for 500, level 2, ask for 2,000, and then you keep going up in tiers. And she was just like, ask for whatever you want. So I think it's kind of like a work of art. I go to a museum and I see something, I'm like, my 4-year-old can draw that, but someone else will pay $1 million for it. So yeah, Nicole, I'll take you up on that. I got to think about that, unpack it, and come up with some real responses.
I hope you guys will see something for that conversation. I sure did. Took down some notes. Indeed. So, final question, ladies, and for myself as well. What season of your life would you go back and not compare yourself to what was happening? So, what season of your life? What season of your life where you compared yourself to someone or something would you go back and change it?
I'll go last.
Wait, what you said?
Okay. Say that one more time. What season of my life would I what?
Would you go back and not compare yourself based on what was happening?
I would probably go back to, and it's funny because I was just having this conversation with Danielle earlier today. I would probably go back to junior high school. And the reason why I say that is because, so I'm trying to figure out how to talk about this without giving it all away. And so, just speaking to the audience, reason why we have, the guests on once again is because, this is about us bringing real life examples and, bringing some of my close friends and, to mentor and talk about real life situations, right? Reason why I say a season would be junior high school, because like in the junior high school, a lot of the times you're trying to figure out who you are, right? And in junior high school, a lot of the times, you're trying to figure out like, your style, your flavor, you know what I mean? Even all the way up until like high school. So hopefully like this makes sense as I try to explain it. Some people would disagree. Some people will agree that that's like when you kind of like learn like your confidence, like who you are, who you're going to be. I would probably just own just like who I am. You know what I'm saying? Like own my swag, own my flavor, because who I was then is who I am now. Just a more mature version of it, right? Like, like back in those days, how you thought that you was too this or too that, not pretty enough, not this, too fat, too this, too that, whatever, and then when you turn into like this beautiful butterfly, like when you are an adult, all that stuff that you thought that you were not, and you look back, you're like everything that they said that you were not. It doesn't even matter when you mature. Does that make sense? And everything that was said is the very thing that's the essence of who you are. Does that make sense?
Yep.
That's it's the essence of who you are. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, because I like to use examples. So if a young girl was called too black back in the day, right? Everybody and their mama want to be black now. You know what I'm saying? Everybody want to have this cocoa, beautiful skin, butter pecan brown, whatever skin, you know what I mean? Cocoa butter brown skin now. But back in the day, it wasn't a thing. You understand what I'm saying? But now it's in, you know what I mean? But back then, it was not. But the very thing that you got clowned on back in the day is the very thing that may make you your millions, or that is the very thing that people find dope about you. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So the very thing that you compared, that you didn't like about yourself back in the day, that you wanted to trade to be something else, is the very thing that makes you who you are. So back in the day, in my junior high and high school, how I may not have thought that I was, that fly girl, or that, that dope ass girl back then. I wouldn't trade who she is, because I think she's pretty fly. I think she's dope as hell. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, so if I could go back to my younger self, and I know a lot of people do this and write the letter back to like their younger self, I would go back and I'll be like, you're gonna be okay. You know what I'm saying? Don't compare yourself. Don't look down on yourself. You're gonna be okay. You know what I'm saying? So I would go back. I said all that to say I would go back to her and just, hold her chin up and just be like, you're gonna be okay. That's it.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. For me, I think I would go back to the season. It was a season, but different scenarios. Go back to when I was dating, previous guys, but I would, and we said it earlier, I would get caught up in, like, if it was a meme, right? And I don't know if you ever seen it. There's a meme, well, not a meme, but it's a picture. And let's say if it's a couple picture, and it'll have like a writing at the top, like my next boyfriend should do this, or my husband will do this, and A, B, C, D, and whatever. And I was like, yeah, I want that. But not realizing, do I really want that? Is that really for me? Like, it's nice to look at, but is that going to fit into what I want, into who I am, into what I'm worth? Like, he can, take you out and dine you out to the 9s and 10s, but still treat you bad when you're at home. So it's like being specific, like, okay, if you pray about a husband, be specific with that. Like, oh, it's more than just, I want a fine man. Like, there's fine men that's bad men. So let's ask for, specific stuff. So I would go back and not compare myself to those photos, and not compare myself to, the women I saw on IG that were flawless and had the coat like full of body, and it was, and I just thought they were just like, oh my gosh, untouchable. I wouldn't go back and I would go back and say, be true to who you are. You are beautifully made. And whatever is for you will be for you. And now I'm at a place where I'm walking like, okay, what I like and what I don't like. I want this. Nah, I don't want this. So now it's like I'm like what we said, I am doing the second step, which is asking myself, what do I want, and creating the blueprint for what I want based on what I need at this moment. Like I don't, and since COVID, everybody's needs have changed. Like some people say, you know what, I don't need to go out to another restaurant anymore. I like to be at home with my family. So just figuring out what my needs are now and just making a blueprint based on that. So I would just go back and tell my younger self, all you have is really all you need. You're fine by yourself. You're beautiful all by yourself, and you don't need a person to come and tell you that.
So good. So as I was sitting here thinking, I love the two examples that both of you gave, but I couldn't come up with something specific, so I'm going to cheat. I would say that I wouldn't change anything because it made me who I am. And
cheater.
It gave me all the wisdom that I need for today and tomorrow, right? And more importantly, those experiences help to shape me. So for example, in the work that I do, if I'm talking to a client and they say, oh, I was just comparing myself to da-da-da, or this happened on social media, or I was looking at this person's page. If I've never ever experienced it, sometimes it's hard to relate to someone, and then it's hard to kind of understand where they're coming from. But because I've experienced some things, it makes it easier for me to be like, I see you, I feel you, I understand you. So I wouldn't change anything, and I wouldn't go back and make any changes. I just appreciate all of them, and I'm glad for the wisdom that I have today so that I can share it with other people, but then I can also use it for myself for tomorrow and the days to come.
I love that. Not changing.
I love that.
Should have known, Roseanne. Should have known.
I was thinking hard, y'all. I'm like, wait, what moment exactly would I change? I'm like, I don't know. We're just gonna keep it.
No, this is beautiful. So the takeaways are, which are all beautiful, is so celebrate who you are, right? Focus on your strengths. Don't compare your life to someone else's highlight reels.
Ooh.
Unlock the power of contentment. That was what Mary was talking about, right? Gratitude. Practice gratitude, right? I like what Roseanne was talking about having boundaries. Learn how to say no. I heard stop comparing yourself and be around those who make you happy, who bring you happiness. Correction. Oh, and do what you love.
Yeah.
Did I capture them all?
More than I thought.
Oh, and then have clear expectations. That's what Roseanne kicked us off with.
Well, that was beautiful. Thank you again to our special guest, Roseanne. Your blueprint is different from mine. My blueprint is different from yours, but we each have one. We're to be unique in who we are. There's enough people trying to be perfect in an imperfect world, child. But you're going to mess up and your pace will be different. However, it is yours. So own that. So on that note, thank you, everyone. And make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and of course, tell a friend. Thank you to my amazing host, Nicole, and special guest.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It felt like one of our car rides or conversations on the couch.
It sure did.
Bye.
Later. Thank you guys for joining.
We want to big up and thank you for rocking with us and tuning in. We hope that you enjoyed this conversation.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Oh, and definitely share with a friend.
Oh, and don't forget to follow our Instagram handles down below.
So until next time, go ahead, sis.